a friend of mine was sending me, well, it was the same guy with the Maine Coon thing. He sent me a picture of like, as a possum and a raccoon and a skunk all kind of like gathered together like along a street gutter or curb. And he sent me the picture and then sort of pitched it as sort of an anthropomorphic heist movie. Um,
I like it.
the possum is doing intel, the raccoon's on acquisition, and the skunk is security, something like that. It's pretty good. I liked it. All right. Speaking of anthropomorphic animals, that's really calling it anthropomorphic when they're actually gorillas. I mean, that's kind of redundant, I suppose. Uh, when we last left our heroes, the words ringing through the chamber. I don't know that this is necessarily a better picture of the underground temple area. I think
I
it
like
is.
it.
I think it is though. I think it's very within a certain art style. That art style being Adventure Time. I think it
Hmm.
is extremely representative of kind of the elements that you know are likely present in this. I wonder has anybody ever run like a D&D game with adventure, like set in the Adventure Time world and just never told anybody, and just but always all the images pulled for imagery and stuff were from the show until they waited for until somebody figured it out. Anyway, your king has returned. As the words echo out.
What?
The uh, the words kind of echoing and stuff like that. The response from the hundreds of many hundreds uh, of the gorillas in the area is, I mean, there is cheering, there is calling out, there is what one would assume to be cheering if gorillas were given to cheer for things. So arms raised above the head, pumping in the air. Um, yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Lots of shouting and calling and stuff like that. Um, Rhythmic vocalization. Whether it is all entirely heartfelt, um, or terribly universal remains to be seen.
I'm just kind of staring around in all directions.
uh,
I'm not counting to see who's cheering and who's not. The fact that there's
right,
people
right.
cheering at me
Yeah,
is
I like Sync's I like Mike's little comment over here in the sidebar. What amazing timing! Joe has a front row seat to meet the king. This is awesome. Perfect timing. Anyway, um, the older the old silverback um, waits an appropriate, if not indulgent, amount of time as the cheering, goes on, and then motions and kind of leads the lot of you through sort of the central area, and there's like the big I'll click on the thing here, the big broad steps leading up to the top of like sort of the central structure, but doesn't take those, like takes kind of goes off to the side into the side door kind of thing at the base of the stairs. It doesn't take you to the king's throne. It takes you to the black seat on the first step. No, but takes you into a building that seems more efficient for just getting you out of sight as much as taking you to any place that's significant. Um, and it kind of gets you into there and takes you into this, fairly, a large, into a hall, and from there into this sort of side, archway into a fairly large room. You have no idea what it might have once been used for, but in this case, it's almost like a receiving room, a sitting room, or at least it's being used for that. Um, you guys are, kind of filing in. He motions, and a couple of the guards take up uh, uh, positions. There is no door on the archway, so the best he's got is just to put a couple of his people outside.
Are there any other doors to this, or
Yeah, there's a couple of
entrances to the room?
there's a couple
Okay.
other ways out, but the room's big enough that nobody's particularly close to that. So it kind of long and along the side here, of the building. So you've got a couple of windows somewhat high up. Um, I say letting light, but I mean you're underground, so it's letting in whatever light there is. There's lights in here as well. Um, and there's other doors out other than the one you came in, sort of at either end, but or at least down at the sort of the far end, the end that would lead further into the building. But aside from that, no, it's pretty much. And there's not seats exactly, but there's a lot of structured cushions, things of that nature. Um, Very reminiscent, really, of your leaf nests and that kind of thing, the sort of thing that you find gorillas making as they move around. In this case, they've just been structured in, out of textiles, that kind of thing. He motions for that. Food will be brought soon. I apologize for that. There was no way to get you in here without making some kind of an announcement. And
I know, but you know, telling them I'm their king. I mean, that
would
that's
have
gonna be really
been,
hard to walk back.
you would have, well, you
I mean, it
are,
seems like an extreme way.
and you would have been recognized by most of them. So there wasn't any point in me saying anything else.
I'm pretty sure on.
You're not. You are. That is. You are. The food, a big platter is brought in, and he kind of waves let's just set this aside for a second while, you know, things are set out. Um, Tahi is taking, I think, tally of the whole thing, kind of taking stock of the building, the structure itself. Uh, she's, her fingers are brushing the walls here and there, and there's a flicker. Kiln, there's a flicker of some reaction here and there in the walls, the seams, the veins that have lit up for you in the past, and certainly reacted to her without any contact in the previous temple. There's some flicker of that, but I think you would say that the technology is there, functional, but it's like a it's like when you flick a switch and the fluorescent bulb is almost out. So what you get is that kind of really gray flickering light that's really more hindrance than help. That's the kind of reaction that she's getting in the walls as she's sort of like brushing along them and stuff. There's a reaction. There's juice to the outlet, but it's not being used in any functional way. It's not responding in the way in which it was originally designed or intended. So that's something happening there. And if anybody has got like questions, things that are, if anybody's got like, while this is going on, I would like to be ... Please do speak up.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, Alex.
Alex is looking for something to jack into.
So Alex did not reattach one of their arms.
Okay.
The reason being that they want to diagnose what happened to it and hopefully come up with some kind of countermeasures or medicine. But they're also going to raise this arm to get the Silverback's attention and just ask. I have some questions, if it's all right.
I imagine you all do. You might as well begin if you're the one that's most willing to begin asking them.
What language do you hear us speaking?
He kind of... It's actually a reasonably, like, sort of a smirk, kind of a, oh, you're the clever one kind of grin. Well, English, East Coast for me. That's what I would hear. I actually understand your language. I've been trained to it. Most of them out there wouldn't understand anything that you're saying. The guards here would understand their own language, but that's due to some of the blessings that have been bestowed upon them by the temple. So it's a bit of a mix. The question is not immediately easy to answer. If they were all of them gathered together in the temple, I think that they would probably all understand you and hear you speaking in our language.
Oh, so the temple's a universal translator.
No, not universal. No, we've had the year I had to learn to speak Japanese. That was no, not a universal translator. It can be taught. It can be taught over time. Japanese would work now, but not then. It learns from us.
Who taught it and who taught you?
It learns from us. That's what I was taught. And that's how what we learn, it can then share under circumstances that sometimes are somewhat difficult to determine.
Okay. So one of you, either you or the temple learned East Coast English at some point, but where did either you or the temple learn it from?
Well, the East Coast English I picked up from your accent. That particular inflection and dialect, I imagine it came from Joseph here.
English because Joseph speaks English. Is that right?
What's that?
Do you speak English because Joey speaks English?
We picked up his accent. We already spoke English. We've been able to understand English since the colonizers came to areas in this area. And all it takes is one idiot who thinks he's a temple tomb raider to come wandering in and get lost. And well, if he doesn't get killed outright, we can usually learn something from him.
Oh, that's very interesting. All right.
But it's limited.
Don't tell them our names.
It's largely limited to, most of the benefit has been in terms of knowledge, actual skill, language. The focus here, the gifts of the temple seem to be communication, facilitating that, or perhaps just learning from. Maybe it knows how to whittle scrimshaw. We've never had a reason to know. So I can't say one way or the other how that. You ask interesting questions.
That's super helpful, and I think I'm probably going to go hack the temple pretty soon with your permission. But I have one other question. If he's the king, is there a queen?
No. King is the wrong. He's the sovereign. He's. We've never really had a good word for it, so I'm not going to find a good word for it in your language any more than I've had it in the other. The best way to say it And if this seems disrespectful, I apologize. He's the crown. He's wearing the crown. And he is the crown.
I think we're all probably going to look at Joey's head at this point.
Joey's feeling the top of his head.
No.
So
You're... How does it work? How does it work with the first colonizers that came here worked under a monarch? How does one designate the monarch? One puts a crown on the monarch's head. You are what the crown, you are what our leader wears while they are leader.
Oh, are you saying that there is a consciousness that would occupy the body that we call Joey right now?
No, the body is the crown.
Yeah, but there's a mind in that body, isn't there?
Yes, Joseph's.
And was there a mind in there before Joseph's?
The last king.
So then the answer to my question was yes.
So, like, every king has this body?
Yes.
No wonder it's stinky.
God.
And that's how Joey got his
Actually,
beacon.
I was doing that for somebody else because that's not what Matt was.
Of course, the body. Long ago, not long after the elders left us, and for many, 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 many generations before that, we had no king. We had no need of kings. It was a simpler and perhaps better time. When we had none and there were no elders but some of the dangers of the elders still remained, or new dangers came. And we called upon the temple and apparently prayed. We were given, our leader at the time was given a gift. And their body was made more, made greater than any one of us, any 10 of us. And that leader became our protector, our guardian, and what you see before you. And when their spirit faded and quailed, the temple took them back. And another leader was chosen, and that leader was given... I've had that story told to me about 100,000 times, it seems like, since I was young, and it's been said to me in different ways. The body was given to the leader, or the leader was given to the body. And no one seems to think that that's odd, that it's different sometimes. I always have.
Hand. Yeah, that sounds odd. But yeah, go on.
This has been going on now for thousands of years, as near as any of our reckoning can manage it. They live longer. That's not right. The spirit persists longer than any lifetime, because the body does not fade or fail. It seems to, but then the temple renews it when the spirit passes from it. And then a new spirit takes up residence. You know, it's more of a castle than a crown, now that I think about it, by your comparisons. Fortress. Something of that nature.
It's hardware, and you run different software on it.
I apologize, child, if this upsets you. All of this would have been explained to you, but we were interrupted. Our last leader before this one ruled for longer than any that we knew of in recent memory. She was mighty and wise and seemed to understand the temple better than I ever did or ever have. And she told us that the next ruler that would come to the body would not be from our tribe. That they would come from outside, and that they would need the body as much as the body needed them. And then she passed, and it was very easy to discount her. Because years passed, and no one came. And we tried to find someone within our ranks who would be suitable. They were rejected. So that stopped fairly quickly. And then we waited. We began waiting when I was an acolyte in the temple. So you know it's been a while. And then what happened to you happened, and it seemed to me that this was as close as we were going to get to whatever prophecy we had been handed. And the temple seemed to agree with me. So we saved your life and found someone to carry the crown. Or man the battlements. Something. But before we could explain anything, well, your people came and got you, and we don't have passports. And also that seemed to align with some other things that our old leader had told us would happen. So we waited again until you came back, and here you are. And now we need to find out what you're going to do. And he takes a bite of, I don't know. I'm gonna say a native fruit. I want to say mango, but I have no idea what the native fruit of the area are. So something.
Joey quick ticks down the questions that he'd been trying to hold on to through all of this, figuring out how many of them have actually already been answered, and then says,
The silverback is very, very good at just like the complete patient, silent waiting. He's perfectly willing to just sit there and stare off at nothing in particular and just wait for you to get to where your words come. Whether that's you or anybody, but occasionally scratching a nostril, shoulder, back, whatever, as you're kind of piecing all of that together.
"What?"
From
No,
No, it's perfect. I like that. Both of you like finally at the same time.
What happened to my original body?
a great number of bullets. It's been preserved. I can't say that it's been repaired. The temple doesn't do that naturally. We're not a city of immortal apes, gorillas, obviously, he says, gesturing at himself. It only has the one place for our ruler. And that seems to work in that fashion. But it does have areas where living things can be preserved, and it lies there. But I wouldn't recommend. It's not dead, but it's not pretty, child. We usually let the king decide what is done with their body after they're brought in, but you weren't given that choice. So again, it's entirely up to you. It's always been your choice every time. So
not this moment, but I would like to see it.
he gestures in a way that indicates it is entirely your right to do so. So, he awaits your request. Marjorie,
Joyce, can you remind me, if you noted particularly about Tahi, when we arrived?
Well, when you first arrived, or when you got to the temple here?
Yeah, I mean after he saw us, when he first saw us. He made a. Most of the gorillas that were out there, like, sort of said, had an expression, like, sort of a reaction of, oh, you're sort of something that we recognize. Huh. I'm not going to have it. There's no good phrase for this, but it's like, if you've seen a lot of Northwestern American art and then completely out of context somewhere else entirely, you see, like, you walk into someone's house and you see a big pottery jug or something like that that's painted in that same style, you kind of have that reaction of, I know what that is, and it fits this particular style, and I'm quite familiar with that, so I know somewhat of what that is. Although I don't know the provenance of it, or the history of it, or really what it's for, if it has any significance, anything like that. I just know that it falls into this category of stuff. Okay. He looked at her and said, I know what you are. Not like I recognize you. I used to have that piece of pottery in my house, but I know that it is for this purpose and what it does. So his look at Tahi was one of recognition of purpose. Tahi's other relevant comments had been that, the temple hadn't been accessed again from what she could tell from a distance in Costa Rica. It hadn't been accessed, any of its higher functions at any rate, since the thing with Joseph. So several years or whatever that was. And that the temple did not have a guardian anymore, and hadn't for some time. Right.
The basically the gorillas had been the only one accessing the temple for ages. So, and yet, so did Met have something she was going to ask, or was that you asking that question? Okay, cool.
To understand.
Cool.
Just in part.
I'm slowly nibbling a mango and looking into space. So if someone has something they want
Yeah.
to do or say, please feel free to do so.
We usually don't live this close to the temple or in this area. I would say usually we haven't until the last since we lost our last leader. It's become more and more necessary. There have been the enemy that we have always dealt with in dribs and drabs over the course of all of our history has begun waking up, and they become more numerous and more dangerous, so we hide from them because we don't have the... He can't help but sort of... His eyes can't seem to help but sort of flick sideways at Joe when he said, we don't have the means to deal with them anymore right now, with the means to deal with them anymore. So we've been hiding from them down here. So apologies for the poor reception when you arrived. It's becoming more and more of a problem. It probably will continue to do so.
So you're talking about Fluvis, the corrupting water spirit, right?
Probably. We don't know that name.
Oh, well, we have someone here, and Alex will point right at Kiln, who has a lot of information about this, and maybe you two should have a conversation.
And he kind of squints at Kiln like, okay. And then he looks at Tahi like he was really expecting that sentence to be attached to her and not them. Because again, he sort of seems to think he knows what Tahi is, and doesn't seem to have any similar knowledge of Kiln. Well, all right. Who are... I am Grogun. Who are you?
I am Kiln. I come from the past.
And then he's looking at you like, okay, and then he kind of squints and he's like, you're one of the ancients? Like, just can't even get, he doesn't just, you could tell him you're a Christmas fairy and he would be, the reaction would be almost the same. Disbelief, but for the evidence of his own senses.
Let's just say your king was away for a while, but came back in a big way. Okay, it's okay.
You're one of the ancients, so you...
We have, from your perspective, my people are ancient. To get any confusion out of the way now, my people refer to those who first, I don't want to say built, that's crude.
Created?
First created the guardians, temple guardians such as Tahi here. We call them ancients. But I don't know, how do you define ancient one?
Those that came before us. How does any people ever define ancients other than those that came before them and are older than our own memory?
Yeah, that's fair.
So, you are the ancients to us, and the enemies that we fight are the ancients' ancient enemy?
Yes.
That is unfortunately not my own poetry. That was the way it has been explained to us. We never had any names to go with it. This Fluvis that you say, that's not a name that we know. We simply know that there was an ancient's ancient enemy, and when the ancients departed, they left the enemy still lurking.
Well, I wouldn't say departed is the correct word.
It is the only word that has been given down to us. We don't have stories for what happened to you and your people.
Well, it's hard for stories to be written when all who are there to witness the events are gone.
He kind of looks at Tahi at that point, like, but, like, she's standing right there. You'll forgive my impertinence, but you are a guardian of a. You are a temple guardian, correct? You ruled a place like this somewhere in the world. And she's kind of like, she winces. She that's not, winces isn't the right word. She gets a look of distaste at the phrase ruled. Um and simply, tells him that, my the temple where I was assigned was destroyed. And he kind of grunts.
I said I'm sorry. That's totally in character, by the way.
I attribute that to the creation of Fluvis, not your own actions, which were unavoidable, or something at least as potent would have been unavoidable. The temple was discovered, and having been discovered would have become, it was always his purpose to destroy them. And she turns back to him and says something like, your temple lost its guardian. And he nods, because it wasn't really a question. Many generations ago, they were a counselor and advisor for the lifetime of many of our leaders, but that was hundreds of our isn't probably right, but hundreds of our generations ago, before before that, since they last advised us, and what knowledge there was has been passed down. What understanding we have has been passed down from what the Guardian told us at that time. The body retains no memory, he says, actually turning to Joe. Other than the memory of muscle and sinew and bone, it doesn't retain knowledge. The spirit, he kind of glances at Alex, and the spirit is gone. The I don't know what you mean by program. The spirit is gone.
Alex will take a full cup and an empty cup and pour water from one to the other.
As you say.
That's what I mean. You have a host, and you have the contents.
And eventually the water fades away and needs to be refilled from another cup. Again, child, it was a desperate moment for yourself For us, we would not have done such a thing without explanation in any other time. We would not have done such a thing with one so young in any other time. For you were a child. By our reckoning and by your own, it was a desperate moment. As a sort of faltering explanation or restatement of fact or whatever. So,
Yeah. Well, I guess you were doing what you thought was the right thing to do.
I could hide behind the idea that I was following a
Right.
prophecy. I could hide behind the idea that you were dying and we saved your life. It was that. It was that. It was all. It was both of those things and half a dozen other ones.
What do you mean by hiding behind those things?
Ultimately, it was my.
Those are
Ultimately, it was my choice. If I say it was the prophecy, if I say it was out of the magnanimous desire to save a child's life, that is true. It is also not all of it, and I have to own my own responsibility in the simple fact that I wanted a puzzle solved, and the answer seemed there in front of me. And perhaps it was. I have no reason to doubt that it isn't the correct answer. I don't have to like it, and I don't, because again, you were a child. You seem to have grown into the bone and muscle and sinew, but that's a different thing. Seeing you out there was like seeing any of our leaders in their full measure, in battle, defending us. And that is,
yeah. Well, I haven't had a lot of choice about that.
and that
But
up to a certain limit is gratifying, but at the same time it hurts to watch because I know who you are and who you were, and I would not. It seems a poor thing to have done, and I will probably always think so.
And yet,
And you realize that his grumpiness towards you, no, his grumpiness is not toward you. He's very disappointed in himself. And
I will jump in here a little bit.
all right, by all
I'll
means. I don't mean this to be his monologue and two people talking. So by all means, I mean everyone's here. Please do.
I will just put my hand on Joe's arm and say, and yet, without your brave decision, we would not have Joe.
Hmm.
To me, that is the more important answer.
I'm glad that good has come out of it. You will forgive me if I have the audacity to point out that giving the rest of the world Joe was not the intent. The enemy is growing. They are looking for our home. Not because it is our home, but because it is the thing they have always looked for. And we are dying here by by one guard at a time, by one mishap after another. And we've been waiting for our king to come back. So you will forgive me if I am grateful that good has come of it and would not have had it happen that way had I had another option at the time.
Well, maybe you should consider that your king is back, and he is more than he would have been if he'd only been here.
Yes.
This location, where we are now, is the site of something very important.
I like to think so.
No, I know so. It is the site of what will be a deciding factor in the future of the Earth. This I know. And because of that, we are here not just to determine Joe's place and answer Joe's question, but we are also here to address the dangers that are facing our world now and in the future.
Mm. This thing, and at this point, about halfway through what you were saying, he had been very he'd been very carefully not looking at Joe. I liken this to sort of like a dog thing. Biggest dog.
I contacted the challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He's not looking, but he's looking now, and he has been looking at Joe. If not to make eye contact necessarily, then look at Joe while she's been speaking. And when she finishes, he says, and he's clearly speaking to you, this thing that your seer knows, is this a thing that you know also? Do you know it? Do you believe it?
I trust anything she says. Joe says, looking at Met.
Does that mean you're going to stay? And that seems to be the thing that he's been dying to ask since he saw you.
It means I'm here to deal with the danger she speaks of. I'm here to deal with the threat your people face. I'm here for my people around this table and my people here in this city. Whatever that takes.
Now that kind of draws him up a little bit. Like he actually sort of straightens a little bit where he's sitting. Like his back, his shoulders come up a little bit. Like in a good way. In a good way. It isn't like light in his eyes, Boromir going, "My captain," kind of thing. But it's definitely like a moment of like, oh, well, okay, that is a sentence that is within the zip code of the right thing, the thing that I was hoping to hear. That is a good thing.
I will chide Joe as he finishes saying that.
Okay.
And I'll say, we are here, not just you.
And we appreciate any assistance.
Joe actually smiled for her for the first time. Joe actually smiled for the first time in about
a month,
15 minutes.
And we appreciate that, although the help that any of you provide is appreciated, but unlooked for. In Joseph's case, the situation is slightly different, as it has been long awaited, and still much appreciated. We've been talking a great deal, and I am cognizant that I can wear away stone with questioning and thoughts and meandering. I will give you some time to yourselves to think. If you have any need of questions answered, I am at your beck and call, but I will depart for now to give you time to yourself so you can talk about the strange old silverback and everything else that's happened. If you need anything, ask your guards. Your guards, not the guards. You have the free roam of the place. You can. I have to assume that hack means something other than what I would assume it would mean, but you have the roam of the place. If you see fit, please try not to damage anything. Again, if you need anything, it is quite literally yours.
Nods.
So, Grogun heads out.
Joe looks over at Alex. Please don't break anything.
I'm not going to break anything, and I also want to point out that Met said that the hot dogs in the cafeteria were not great at one point, so she's not always right. You shouldn't always trust her on everything, but I think you should trust her on this. I'm just clarifying for completeness' sake. Hey, Tahi, let's go hack the temple.
And you don't exactly know how she manages this, but her eyebrows actually go up in a, oh, really? Well, all right. And
The
yeah,
hot dogs or the hacking?
the go hack the temple thing is, she wasn't entirely expecting that. All right. So Alex and Tahi more than ready to head off into some other area of the temple, because you're not in the central area at all. That's almost the point right here. And Tahi would know that. Certainly, Kiln would have a pretty good idea that you're not exactly in an outbuilding, but you're certainly on the outer rooms, In the old days, Kiln, this would be like where visitors from afar would wait to be received by the, head acolytes before they ever really got to the center hoi polloi. So
waiting room.
Yeah, you're in a waiting room for the well-regarded kind of thing. Not that that's indicative at all in whatever was intended by Grogu, anything like that.
Oh, well, that's a good point. Kiln, you know this stuff. You should come help me hack the temple.
Kiln and Tahi.
Yep. Hey, Roddy, I could use another pair of arms. You want to come along?
Well, I'm sure you could use at least one more arm.
Awesome. All right.
Well, okay.
You're conveniently trying to
You notice that.
Leave Met and Joe alone.
Yeah, Alex thinks.
Don't forget Gothwood.
I was going to say, so Gothwood, as Kiln or Roddy, as you start to get up, Gothwood kind of tugs on your sleeve and kind of leans in and is like, okay, so should I go with you, or did these two need a chaperone?
No, you come with me.
Or a referee? Are you sure? All right.
No, I need help. Come on.
Well, I mean, duh.
That's obvious.
Anyway.
Don't worry, in about 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to dispatch those two on an errand, too. So we'll.
Oh, you can dispatch those two. We will keep them occupied. Have no fear. All right. So
I got this all worked.
All right. So Alex trundles off with most of the crew in tow, leaving Joe and Met. And at the risk of focusing yet more on Joe time, I will simply say, you should work out amongst yourselves what the next bit is here while we proceed with the other crew here, and we'll circle back to you in a moment. Well, probably longer than a moment, but circle back to you while you've got processing. Joe, any immediate things that you're like, as soon as they're out of the room, I do this? Because if so, I would like to know that.
Nothing that's going to change
Anything that they do.
Anything that they're off to do.
I am gonna Samson the no. I guess it would be Samson. I'm gonna blind Samson the fuck out of this place right now. Like that would, yeah, that has repercussions. I should know about that.
Temple, command override, self-destruct sequence 00347. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so Tahi sort of takes point on this thing. Just in terms of leading to where, sort of the central structures and systems would be. And she says it that way, although you get the sense that when she says structures and systems, she's not talking in a hardware, software sense. She's talking in the skeletal, circulatory sense.
In magic sense.
No, it's more of a biological sense. The bone and sinew structures and the systems of circulatory and nervous systems. That kind of a. It has just a feel of a biological or a biology lecture, not a computer science, teaching kind of thing. Kiln, questions, thoughts, any of this stuff while you're moving along here? Questions for Tahi, questions for yourself, things to query, suggestions for I'm really hoping to run into so and so here. I need to find an old artifact. Any of that kind of stuff.
What makes you think I would have any idea of the artifacts kept in, the backs of temples?
Because
that is way above my pay grade.
I completely agree that it is way above your pay grade. With that said, you do have, sort of right of first refusal when it comes to, narrating crap that you find in here. Realizing that you're not actually from the temple, but you are my living and breathing expert on this culture. So, by which I mean the only person. So, just shout out if you have any suggestions or thoughts or like, oh, this should happen.
Is Kiln asking this in character? Is like, are they saying like, why am I coming along?
I don't know. What do you think, James?
Am I asking what?
Are you? Go ahead.
Are you saying these things in character? Are you expressing like, why am I here? What do you expect me to do?
I'll do that in character.
What help I could possibly be.
This is not my temple. This, who knows what they moved since I was gone, and I didn't even spend that much time in the temples anyways.
I want to tell you a quick story. When you do software testing, you try to cover the stuff that you would think to cover, and if you had a bar, for example, or a restaurant, the tester might come in and say, I'm going to order food. I'm going to order this variety of food. I'm going to order 42 dishes. I'm going to order -1 dishes. I'm going to order all the things that you would think to try. But then a real customer will come in and say, where's the bathroom? And the place will catch fire because nobody tested that scenario. So what I'm looking for you here is, first, just to sort of validate what we're doing as an independent observer and somebody who kind of pays attention and has good instincts. But also, just basically because I trust you with my life. I have trusted you with my life previously. I'm doing so again. And I really value your input, and I'm kind of scared about this. So please just play along and be cool.
I didn't know going to the bathroom was so important to you.
It will set a place on fire, apparently.
That may be. I'm just going to give props where it's due. That may be the most relic playbook thing that you have said that the Kiln has said.
Try not doing it for 5 days and let me know how it works out for you. Okay.
Why would they need to know how to do that?
How many centuries? How many tens of centuries? Did you not go to the bathroom?
I mean, a whole bunch, but still. Okay. Wow. I didn't know going to the bathroom was so important to you. All right. And now you have to wonder if like there's a whole section of society that you have thus far been unexposed to, Kiln, where where like going to the bathroom carries a risk of immolation and death, and it just doesn't happen in Halcyon, or you've been lucky. Anyway. Right. So, so Tali kind of leads you along to, doesn't take you back out of the building again, but takes you up and through it and stuff. Occasionally, we'll find herself stopping and pausing. You can't help it. Well, I don't know. You probably could help, but if you happen to be the sort of nerd who would have watched like Lord of the Rings movies in character, there's a bit of like Gandalf trying to guide them through Moria when they don't have a clear memory of the place. So there's a little bit of guesswork there, and at least a couple times where she frowns and like, this isn't how it should be. This is odd. There should be a passageway here, and it's been closed off, and there shouldn't be a passageway here, and it's been open to this entire room. And
I don't know if you ever,
recollection of this place.
I have no recollection.
I don't know if you've heard the story from my parents of their wedding night. So my mom actually lived in the Hotel del Coronado for several years when she was a kid during World War II. They spent their honeymoon night at the Hotel Del. And my mom thought she was so clever because she was going to lead my dad to the room, the back way. Only the back way no longer worked because there are barriers between balconies and hallways that were closed off.
And
all the things that
Winchester Mystery Museum or Hotel.
Yikes.
Literally, they were climbing around balconies to their room.
It never quite gets to that point, but there's a lot of, there's certainly some backtracking in here where she's, and when you finally arrive at what very vaguely sort of puts you in mind of the central of the central chamber that Tahi had. It's not a great memory for Sync, because it was where she was like all mean to her and mean to him and stuff. But that sort of central space in the temple, the private space for the temple guardian or whatnot, she stopped short because things look really different than what you remember from that other space, and clearly not what she was expecting here. If you kind of recall, the room that Tahi had brought you down to was relatively Spartan. There was sort of a central dais, kind of a central altar thing, with a lot of sort of the silvery veins coming toward it. But largely, I mean, it's basically a big open space. Maybe there had been furniture at one point in time, but it had been removed. It's pretty cleared. This is not like that. This space is cluttered, crowded. If you took like what would be, Dave, am I saying it right if I say like the main chamber of like a cathedral where all the pews and that and stuff, is that the grand sept, or am I thinking of something else?
What's that would be the nave would be where all the pews are. The transept is where, since most classic churches are built on a cross sort of thing,
yeah,
the transept is basically where that cuts across.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so it's a big open space, the nave type of thing. It's got that kind of it's more square, but it's a big open space, and Somewhere in there is a dais with a plinth on it, kind of a what would pass for an altar up on it, but it's hard to spot because it looks like any significant structure of some sort of use from within the temple has been moved into this thing, rearranged, put in cheek and jowl with one another. It's not a complete maze, but it looks more like a. I mean, those of you who've watched the more recent She-Ra, I'm thinking like sort of the visual similarity to Hordak's lab, than like an open, airy, wide open temple space where like just a bunch of what would otherwise be completely unrelated devices and things have been sort of possibly haphazardly jumbled together. There could be some system or logic to the whole thing, but it's not immediately evident. It just looks like the whole place has just been.
I was gonna say, does it look like it was? I literally like it was just used to store everything.
No,
or
it's been
okay.
It's been. It's been repurposed. Everything has been repurposed. And has been for a long time, because while it's still sort of a jumble and everything's sort of brought in here and a space made to be found for it, that kind of thing, it's also been this way for a really, really, really long time. Like this. So what brings her up, Tahi up short, is that this is just not what she was expecting to see. And then it's like they completely. This isn't even a. And she wanders, for lack of a better word, around and not going in towards the center as much as sort of circling around the outside to get the sense of the shape of the place, looking at things and looking at how they're set up but this is for the front. This is for the front entrance. This would have been near the front gate. Why? And kind of looking at all these things and sort of muttering to herself about the whole thing. Alex, if you imagine all of this as hardware and computer equipment, mainframes, power sources, all the gear. This is somebody going, okay, I need all the computing power of this campus, but I don't want to have to leave this server room. So I'm bringing it all here. That's your projection based a bit on just the jumble that you're seeing and Tahi's response to it.
Okay.
Eventually, what you'll say is something like, "This place has been completely repurposed to a different. This isn't a temple anymore. I don't know what it is, but it's not a temple anymore.
It's been hacked into something else. Yeah, that's fine. All I care about is turning this place into a functional defensive system for these folks and getting it up online again and making use of it. What do we care about here, and what don't we care about?
If she can't help us, I got this. I can deal with chaos.
And
I actually want to see where the move goes because I'm curious now.
I understand spatial relationships.
Mostly, I am just excited to use a move that I have had since character creation and haven't gotten to use.
Tell me what you're thinking, because I desperately want to hear this, because I have a thing that she would maybe ask, but I don't. It's not connected to that, or maybe it will be. Tell me. Oh, let me look.
So I got to move.
When you
And I
scope out
figure
the
it,
place.
it
Nice.
is just going to be Ratty like looking around the place for like 5 minutes and just being like, "All right, everything I know about super science that I learned from news reports. Let's figure this out."
And studying, like, absolutely nerding out about like everything that the Halcyon, the HHL has ever done.
Did you not get to use this move when we broke out of the tower?
I might have. I didn't think I did.
Like, I want you to use it again because it's awesome. I just thought that I'd seen this rule before.
I think you use it best way in or out. I think.
Yeah, that's
Oh
what I
yeah, I
remember.
think I might have.
Yeah, but this is good and I like it.
I just don't usually have my mundane in a place where I can actually make use of it.
That's fair.
But Doyce, look at my stats right now.
I feel like I flipped your mundane on you or pushed on it really hard for some other purpose, and what? One
How does that even happen?
1.
There's a 0 in there.
I mean, that's funny. I remember at one point in time when D&D 3.0 and 3.5 was out, and I realized that like the points for a point buy thing like let you just do 13s all across the board, so you'd have a +1 in everything. And then trying to decide if there was any character that wouldn't be just a horrible idea for. It kind of reminds me of that. Well, there's no bad roll. There's no bad roll.
I was gonna say we had a player in one of my games, but that's neither here nor there. They were the tank.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's good. That's cool. Yeah. I feel like. Okay. All right. Is there any way to get me up high so I can see all of this? What Tahi initially asks. And
I got flying drones, and if Roddy takes a look at the output of those flying drones, maybe this is a way for him to work with her or to come up with something via that move.
I need to see it, though. I need to see it. And Gothwitch will be like, I can get her up in the air. It's.
I wanted to see if I could parkour her up a wall or something.
Well, if you want to, I mean, she doesn't have to say anything about it. But that's cool. She'll do that. You've got influencer on right now, so she's more likely to listen to you anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it'd just be like, hey Ty, or you need, when she says she needs to get up high to see stuff, it's like, Ty, did we ever ask you, like, do you weigh like stone or do you weigh like a person?
There's so many ways you could take that wrong.
I'm sorry, asking a woman how much she weighs?
I feel like.
No, I'm asking it.
Are you trying to imply she's not a person?
I'm heavier than you would expect, but not unmanageable. It depends on what you're trying to do.
Cool.
What are you trying to do? Cool.
Ratty has no sense of personal space. Not when it comes to doing cool stuff.
All right. So you just kind of, is it sort of a fireman carry or grab my back and then piggyback, or what's the deal there?
1 and 2 probably the other.
Okay. All right. And it's relatively friendly for this kind of thing. She doesn't necessarily get up, I mean, high, but there are, I don't know how I guess, observation galleries up above where you can see that, where you can get her up to. And she's like hanging on while you're, kind of, skipping from, sort of jumping from ledge to ledge or pushing herself over from ledge to ledge. And she's like, there are stairs in outer chambers that would, kind of get up over one of the railings and, looking down at the thing. And she's kind of looking down. She goes, All right. Ask me questions about what we're seeing so I can start answering them, because if I just look at the whole thing at once, it's too much to process. Ask me things.
What are the most vital components here that are out of place?
All of it. It's all out of place. It's that's a watcher stone for the front gate. That's um
Let me rephrase. What components here will interfere with us getting the temple to maximum functionality in the shortest amount of time?
I don't know what it's supposed to. She's a little bit at wit's end, a little bit. I don't know what it's supposed to do. I don't know if anything. It may already be doing what you want. Probably not. Why would it have the regeneration pod there? That doesn't.
So I'm not here, but my recommendation is to classify components into power sources, movement sources, and
I mean, drawing an architecture diagram is where Alex is going to go next. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also going to point out that Alex is in a habit of leaving comlinks behind. If either Joey or Matt feel like communicating with the team, or vice versa.
Oh yeah.
There's a way to do it.
right.
So, Roddy, some of what I'm picturing up here on the thing is you basically asking what various crap is, so you can get heads or tails of what you're looking at a little bit, and it also lets her sort of compartmentalize because she's basically overwhelmed with what's been done.
Got it.
Okay.
So
you do your
it's mostly
thing.
going to come from Roddy as like, that thing looks cool. What is that?
Kind of, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it's, I mean, honestly, the way you're even presenting it is a very mundane thing to me either, because you just want to know what the cool shit is.
And I feel like Roddy is the best translator between
Yes.
Roddy and Alex in this term. Alex is too technical.
And that's yeah. And when you ask these questions, she's kind of like, I don't know what it's like. She's okay. So and to put this at a slightly meta level, but not, she is a temple guardian. There is a thing that the temple is supposed to do. Everything in its place, and everything hums, and it's beautiful, and it's wonderful, and the TARDIS is meant to be piloted by 11 people. Then it finally flies correctly. That kind of a thing. Everything is supposed to be in a certain place. Nothing is where it's supposed to be in here, and it is baking her noodle, top to bottom. She is not. She could adapt probably, but right now. It is literally, I don't even have a good analogy for this, but just everything is in the wrong place for what it's supposed to be doing, and therefore she can't even process what it is meant to be doing.
Oh no, I have the perfect example for this. She's an engineer who designed a spec laboratory and then showed up 6 months later after letting actual people who do work at it for 6 months.
She didn't even design it. She was designed to be part of it. It's like
same difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's all it's.
I prefer Furnican connected into the Translab fire.
Yeah, I mean,
that didn't work.
She set up the racks and the patch panels, or she's
the expert system.
The rack and patch panels to be set up beautifully. Everything labeled, shortest path, nothing overlapping, and she's come back to 6 months later, and it's mass chaos.
Yeah, a working lab where everything is sort of categorized by tribal knowledge. Another way of looking at it, she's an expert system that's expecting everything to be in the configuration that she was quote unquote programmed to get it for. Now she's better than that. She's more than that, certainly, but it's still kind of baking her noodle and taking it apart piece by piece is, mentally speaking, is useful. So, Roddy, straight up creeping. Focusing, I think, probably at like who, what is not what they seem kind of angle on this thing, I think, depending on, what the role looks like, all that kind of stuff. We'll see how well it works. Maybe you're not the best interpreter, but you might be.
I know Technobabble.
Yeah, who knows?
I'm going to name one of my moves that eventually. Okay,
Ooh.
it's doing the same thing it did before.
Okay. Oh, I see that. -1. Do you
Yeah, so it should be.
do you have conditions? You don't even have conditions. Why-
Nah, I don't have conditions.
You
so
don't
that
even
should
have a
be-
-1 stat. What the hell could it be pulling from?
I don't know. So that is 7 plus 1, so it's an 8.
I wonder if it's just the moves that are screwed up. Doesn't matter. 7 plus 1 is 8.
Okay, yeah, don't get it. I tried
If you haven't before, change the label that it's using to something else, and then change it back.
I've done that.
Just checking.
Because-
Weird.
Yeah, let's see.
It doesn't matter. I mean, we.
Okay, that one works.
So,
Okay, I did that last week, and for some reason.
So switch off, switch back, and it kind of behaves.
Uh-huh.
Weird. In any case, you got the 8 that you were looking for, so or that we had really gotten anyway, so that's fine.
I feel like we probably want to spend team to get this up to a 10 because I would love that second question. Alex can certainly spend team, NPCs can spend team, so I think Tahi can probably contribute.
Oh, absolutely.
So can we make this a team effort?
I am 100% fine with that. Or Kiln.
I can also.
I like
I don't know.
I like Tahi being the answer person, but I also like Kiln contributing just because Kiln should have. Actually, Kiln.
Oh well, you know,
No. I enjoy this because Tahi can say something, Kiln will understand it, use an older reference, and then have to explain it back into more modern day stuff that then Alex can understand.
I'm
It's like
a
that-
super big fan of that.
Yeah.
thing from a lab the other week.
The one that you said was full of spinning platters.
Spaghetti.
No.
Just like random
Oh
stuff.
my God, no.
Listen, this part is like the barbecue sauce. You don't use it alone. You use it on something else, but it's vital.
So yeah, when the conversation gets started and just the idea of being able to see all this at once, if you don't mind, Kiln, you going up onto the same balcony, kind of hear what Tahi's saying, and also just to get a look at everything. Also, leveraging Ancient's technology in various jury-rigged ways, as required by battlefield necessity, is a little bit more in your wheelhouse, and more likely to look somewhat familiar. So there's some angle there, I think, that's probably also relevant. I'm assuming also that the drones are out and about and sort of taking a scan of this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to say, let's grab a question. We'll kind of start with, if this is okay, we'll start with Sync's sort of who or what here is not what it seems. And Alex, if you've got a good question off of your sort of assess the situation thing, that would like make a good second question. We can sort of mix and match.
I'm totally fine with Mike asking his two questions.
What was the other one you were looking at?
So who or what here is not what they seems like the best one, because that might give us like some information about what they did.
Uh-huh.
And then what here's worth grabbing, because Roddy will always get himself into danger.
That's fair. All right. Okay. So, yeah, with everything that's going on, so there's two. Tahi is able to make heads or tails out of the sort of the central core thing, more quickly, or at least kind of see how some of that stuff was organized, and that's the stuff that's around what they refer to as sort of the regeneration pod. So there's kind of a indented altar type of stone slabby sort of thing it's not human shaped, it's not anything shaped, but it's concave. It's got a, if you've ever seen like soapstone that's been carved out to be an ashtray, it's got that kind of indentation, with flat sides, all the way around, kind of a thing. It's big enough for, say, Joe to be in it, but it's it's not super specific, but that's what she refers to as sort of like this thing. And there's been stuff that's been pulled up largely from similar areas of the temple to kind of support this. For whatever reason, it was brought up here. Okay, that's fairly straightforward, and that's like, you know, the what does it, you know, the what is not what it seems goes a little bit beyond that, because there is a lot more stuff here than what serves that purpose, and that's where Tahi just kind of flounders. So while this is happening, like, you know, Alex has got the schematics, you know, kind of sketched in and that kind of thing, and sort of color coding stuff. This area here, kind of all towards the center, is about regenerating this leader, generating, you know, reinforcing, strengthening, whatever the original effort was to make the original body far more than it was, kind of deal. And then it's got some feed into the rest of the stuff outside, but it's not directly to that. But a lot of that whole like core thing, the first thing that was done here that's different, has to do apparently with that whole regenerative cycle. And that tracks, and Tahi's kind of basically gets that, and that would have to do with the records in the temple and the knowledge that she was able to glean as to what all the rest of this is, though, as Flummox is her. Because, and some of the stuff that she was sort of shouting about before, you're like, this is a Watcher Stone from the front gate, and this is this thing, and this is something that's used for measuring, you know, temperatures in the kitchen area, and this is something, this is part of a stove, and all this other kind of stuff. But when you start to see how it's organized together, and Kiln is the thing that kind of makes it click, because she lists off a couple of things all at once, and it's like, oh, so that's the Watcher's Stone, and this thing, and this thing, and that, if it's in any way kind of still connected to the outer part of the temple, means that now this Watcher Stone knows when anything that isn't like the gorillas is coming anywhere nearby. This is a sensor. This is a warning system. He wouldn't have called. They wouldn't have called it a sensor. Kiln wouldn't have called it a sensor. It's a sentry. They took something that was a passive thing that was meant to help a guard who was standing out there and turned it into a thing that watches on its own. Okay? And that's where things start to make sense for Roddy, or where you can kind of look at it and go, okay, so what's that cluster there? Because they're kind of grouped, right? And to a certain extent, I would say, if this follows, Bill, I would say that it isn't so much a revelation for Alex as a confirmation of what you suspected might have been going on. Because how in the hell is the thing teaching languages? How is it picking up knowledge out of the heads of the inhabitants of the area and then storing it and handing it off to everyone else? Like, it knows once everybody else knows. So it's looking, you know, some of that is this and some of it. So what you have here, what here is not what it appears to be, is they've cannibalized the entire temple. And it had to have been the Temple Guardian that did this, because nobody else, least of all, like if somebody like Kiln were here, and they completely, as near as Tahi can tell, took most of anything of any use anywhere else in the temple, brought it here, and started to put it together in some way to make it do other more relevant, useful stuff. You can almost create a timeline on it. It's like rings of a tree from the inside out. First, we have to have this guardian, and now the guardian needs knowledge, and now the guardian needs other defensive measures of, we don't have weapons, but we do have, sensing, knowledge, storing that, learning things, watching out, hiding, concealing, so on and so forth. And this place has been set up to sort of passively maintain the integrity of this tribe, provide them with a safe place, but also protect the temple, and use them to protect the temple by making them more, better, and always more and better. Languages, more knowledge, blah 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 blah.
So if I was to categorize this as a guardian in a box, or a guardian expert system, or
okay.
a primitive guardian AI, would that be on point?
And passively doing this, like it's almost like if you took a program, if you took an expert system, but somehow managed to build an expert system out of an aqueduct, because it's just sort of passively bringing the stuff in and passively handing it off. Everything can run unmonitored.
You get very sophisticated behaviors out of clever combinations of simple components.
Yes, yeah. This thing is it's like a passive magic rock Rube Goldberg machine, or ET's signaling back home, ET phone home thing that's made out of a speak and spell and a plastic record, the thing that turns a notched disc.
It is any Star Trek episode where they end up in, the Wild West or 1925 or whatever, where they're having to
Some bearskins, Captain.
create something out of radio tubes and
Toothpaste.
Or in the real world, early phone hackers realized the whistle that you could get with Captain Crunch cereal could be used to hack the phone system,
because it made just the right just the right tones for
Whistler
free collect calls.
I was gonna say that's one of our favorite characters in Sneakers.
Yep. So what you have here, and once Tahi sees it, she gets it, and it is both, sees it as both something that's brilliant and inspired, utterly unable to understand what would ever possess a guardian, a temple spirit a temple guardian to do this. Like where the impetus comes for such a drastic overhaul. It's from her reaction, it's both amazing, an utter mystery as to what would have prompted such a thing, and at the same time, kind of squickish and gross. Like she has almost like an uncanny valley reaction to it.
That kind of leads into my question, which is, from our remote sensing, where does this cross over with the forbidden technology of my generation?
It's in the combinations, because what's been done here is never anything that anybody ever intended the temple to be able to do. It's a new thing. It's a series of new things.
And speaking in absentia, since I'm not actually there,
which is fine. But we're left to bed.
Well, I'm just adding to the group mind because all the characters are smarter than we are.
Yeah.
The question of why the Guardian would do this may tie into the question of what the hell happened to the Guardian. If the Guardian had to set up an automated Guardian-esque expert system out of aqueduct chambers, it may have been because something had happened or was going to happen to the Guardian.
If it knew that it wasn't going to survive.
Going to be here to do the things it needed to do. It had to do something to make sure that those functions maintained.
Yeah. Yep. Or something similar to it. And there seems to be, and Tahi will be the one who makes this observation. Clearly, there seems to be some, whatever their motivation was, they seem to have adopted this tribe and decided that they were worthy of this. You could call it an invention. I will call it a sacrifice. I wonder what happened to them. Anyway, so yes, that was. Oh, what's here worth taking? What here is worth taking? Tahi will identify that, well, it's a combination of Alex, actually more Alex's deduction, I think, more as much as anything else. But if you were going to pick the one thing, the temple, and whether it's taking is the right thing, but it certainly is probably the most valuable bit. There is what once would have been, for all practical purposes, the equivalent of the holy guest book at the front of the temple, where visitors would enter the temple, and their name and their presence and the fact that they came would be noted. It was a part of the temple. It was part of the entryway of the temple. It wasn't something so crass as a book that one signed or anything like that. It was simply a section of the temple that noted all who came and went, who they were, what their purpose was, why they were there, and simply stored it. Right. Up to, certain limits and stuff Ian doesn't know, like secret modes, whatever. Who again?
I guess that's cool.
No,
that's looking for a thing that would make laser mooses.
That is what it was. But what it really is a very, very expansive data storage chunk. Okay, so they took that and brought it here and tied it into the rest of it, so that as this thing gathered information, data, knowledge from its inhabitants, the tribe, and that sort of thing, that's where it put all of it. Every sentry report from the seeing stone, from the watching stones around the temple, every anything, any of the information that had been designed, now I should say redesigned, hacked to gather, went here into this thing. And some of it came back out, went to the whatever was sleeping in the pod, or was distributed through means that you're not entirely 100% sure about to certain members of the tribe while they were within the temple. See Grogun. And languages and that sort of thing. So if you want to, I don't know that this is a thing where it's like, oh, I want to absolutely take this thing. But basically, this thing's been sitting here ticking away and recording information and doesn't seem to have filled up yet for mumble 1,000 years. Probably there's useful information in there. Probably there's answers.
Alex, nerd stuff.
Okay.
I found the main hard drive. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I need you to help me out with something else, though. I'm eventually going to run out of juice here. I've got some solar panels, but they're going to require access to direct sunlight. I've got some battery packs. We're basically going to set up a kind of a rotating system so I can keep charged while I study this thing. I'm going to need Tahi and probably kill him for that. But can you and Gothwitch maybe find a route to the surface that's not also going to set all alarms off with Fluvis, and then just set up some panels for me, please?
Oh, yeah, cool. You've just sent me off to explore the temple alone.
Not alone.
Gothwood.
I will pull you around by your earlobe if I have to.
Yeah. You just made this much less fun.
So what are you sending with them?
A backpack with solar panels and some spare batteries.
Okay.
I'm eventually going to run out of electricity here on my mobile
Sure.
devices because these guys do not have any sort of electrical system.
Well, maybe.
Play along with me. I'm trying to help Roddy out here.
No, I got you. I good. And
Help is in air quotes. I
yeah,
understand.
Gothwitch may be able to do something there anyway. In any case, all right. So, the main fun there, Roddy, is that probably going up to the surface is not something that the big silverback ape's probably super thrilled about. So, that'll be kind of interesting anyway. So
Yeah,
we'll get
we
to
get
you.
to sneak past apes.
Yeah, we'll get something going on there. I'm probably gonna have I kind of know what that's gonna look like. Kiln. Questions, thoughts? This is a situation where they took the temple and rehacked it to essentially be like a sentry outpost. They turned it into a fortress, sort of a passive observation post / fortress.
And it's all kind of hacked to focus around the pod of resurrection.
Yeah, well, some of it, the connections there are more tenuous, but it has to do with, some of it gets fed back as information, data, that kind of thing. Yeah, you have to wonder what level, how much of that is being fed in there when the silverback says, no knowledge is kept with the body. You have to go, yeah, but none, because there's a lot of stuff that seems to be pointed that direction. A fair amount of stuff that seems to be pointed that direction for the body to remember none. That seems weird.
I mean, that's not quite what I'm thinking with that.
Yeah, this is my observation more than anything else. But yeah, the central core of this thing is the resurrection pod. Or I say resurrection pod. It's the stasis rejuvenation pod, so to speak.
The handmade ashtray.
Keep the body hale, whole, hearty, and huge. A lot of H's. And the rest of it came after. This I think might be a little bit more of something that Kiln might process out of this, is you can see the timeline of the thing. These people need a guardian. I know how to make that. Or at least I have a theory about how to make that, and hey, look, it worked. And now we have a guardian, and the guardian is long-lived, and the guardian is very much invested in preserving its people, and the guardian can speak to me, and the guardian convinces me that more can be done. And at their behest, I do more. I add more. Since I have already begun, I have committed the first sacrilege, cannibalizing the temple. Well, that wall is down, and now I can continue to do more. And when you look at this thing, you see concentric rings of demand. Not demand is perhaps the wrong word, but expanding ripples of the needs that this guardian, that central node, where that if you look at that and you sit there, you look at that central regeneration pod, and go rippling out from that are a series of heartfelt requests over generations for this or that, or we need this, or if we don't have this, then this horrible thing will happen. And that causing these ripples out further and further out in the room as more and more is taken from the temple and built. That I see as something that maybe Kiln would process, because it's what you see in that central pod is the demands, and I say that advisedly, but I say the demands of a protector.
Prayers.
And yeah, the prayers. There you go. The prayers of a protector. The pleas of a protector, and then the responses from the temple guardian.
The compromises.
The compromise. Yes. Exactly that. These compromises that are made by the temple guardian at the pleas and prayers of the guardian that they've of this protector that they themselves brought into being. It follows that whatever finally ended the guardian is something that was done in the outermost ring of things, because that outermost ring would have been the last. And if there isn't any more past that, then it's because they weren't there to do anymore. I don't know if that's any major revelation or whatever, but you're looking at, it's easy for you to, I say this as to a certain extent because it's easy for you to see, I think for Kiln to see, because Kiln's a protector. Like, what had I been the one standing there in the center, would I have asked for, pleaded for? You know, so you can see yourself almost as the same kind of mindset that would have caused those ripples outward. But yeah, logically, if it did all start from the center and work its way out, then whatever project is represented by the outermost developments in this room, that's probably what killed the Guardian, or took the Guardian out, or whatever. So that's something. That's your insight into all of this.
Well, I'll add in one thing that this gets me thinking about is it shows that, you know, the ancient technology can be reworked, and makes me wonder if this could be a key to going back to my time.
It's a conversation that you imagine you probably could never have had with Tahi
before.
But maybe now, because now, I mean, everything in the world cannot be done until somebody finally does it, and then it can. Or somebody puts the thought in the head about what if. So, can this kind of technology be repurposed? No, it has a purpose. It's the temple. It does the things that the temple is meant to do. But no, not now.
Beyond just Tahi wouldn't have entertained the thought, I don't think, you know, I would have thought about it before, since
right. So the
idea
temple
has always been the temple.
Yeah, and aside from, I mean, it isn't even your people's tech. The temple guardians aren't even your people's tech. Your people's creation. They're inviolate. But apparently not. Just have to ask the right questions. Pray the right prayers, plead the right pleas. Something. So yes, that is a hell of a personal revelation to have there. Joe.
Yes. You caught me just as I was typing something down. Hang on, have a second.
Oh yes.
I had a brilliant insight.
Quick, write it down.
We'll probably be obsoleted 3 paragraphs into whatever we're about to do.
No, I don't. I was going to ask you what we're going to do, so you can leverage that brilliant insight right away.
Joe looks over at Met. I don't know what to do here. I do know what to do. I'm just afraid of where this is all going to take me.
Are you afraid of losing yourself?
I don't know that I have a self to lose anymore. I'm just afraid that I'm going to have to do whatever I can to keep this place, keep these people safe, because that's what I was made for. That's the reason I'm here. And Joe's now marking the tribe here as his rival.
Ooh, I like that. That's really cool. I really, really like that. Met.
Right, that was what I was just writing down when you called me. Like, yes. Okay.
Really, yeah. Matt, I'll also point out, because you had this sort of thought, like this is the time, this is this place where Mighty Joe Young leaves the path of the hero, keeping in mind that this is future history as written by the survivor on the ship that we have established is, the Powertronic or something
He's
like that.
mutable.
Yeah, he's let's just say an unreliable historian. But it doesn't bode well. This is where Mighty Joe Young left the path of the hero. It occurs to you, hearing him talk, hearing this thing, that this could be as not straightforward, but it might not be like, and he became a villain, or he destroyed the world, or blah blah blah. He might just say, yeah, I'm gonna stay here and do this, and not be a hero because I have to stay here and do this. That's not necessarily, I'm not saying it is in any way, shape, or form a comforting thought. It may be even more discomforting than the thought you had been having. That's an interesting question. What's worse, the thought that this might be a place where Joe strays from the hero's path and becomes a villain? Or the thought that this might be the place where Joe says, bye guys, I have to stay here. Because this is what I should do. And hearing Joe talk, that certainly seems like that's something that's in the cards.
I think so, and that was actually a worry of mine beforehand, but I think it's more than that. I think what I'm concerned about is that Joe doesn't feel like he's anchored any longer in himself.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That tracks.
That he, so he's always sort of been, part of it was, I want to get back to who I was. I don't want this. This was imposed on me. I think this reaction is kind of equal in the opposite direction, which is, well, I guess this is what I am supposed to do because, that's what they want me to do, as opposed to, what is the what is best, sort of what is Joe, what is best for Joe, what is, you can be true to yourself and still support other people without losing yourself to them.
Well, and Joe, you've spent, I think Joe has spent a fair amount of time like just wondering, like, what is even the point of me? Like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, hero, whatever, but there's got, I don't say there's got to be. Is there some level of this revelation that's almost a relief? Because at least now you have a very clear answer to what am I meant to do. Even if it sucks, even it's like, oh, I never get to a burger shop ever again. I don't get to see, I'm not going to go back to school, blah, blah, blah. But at least I know what I'm supposed to do.
Right. And Met's complaint is that it's a very passive thing. It's not, I know this is what I should do. It's, well, I guess this is what I should do.
Exactly.
And that's where he runs into problems because, if he's doing it for somebody else, then, it's not sustainable.
Yeah. How much of this makes it into the, because Joe's saying these things, and I mean, we've heard what Joe said. So what? How does how, if at all, at this point, or are you still? I mean, there's a perfectly legitimate answer that says I'm still processing all of this, and I don't say anything because I'm still trying to get my head around this and trying to articulate what it is that I want to say, or do you have something?
Which is, yeah, no, I think I'm pretty strong in that. My goal here is for Joe to see his individual worth, and not to be, just a, not allowing others' needs to subsume him. And so,
That's a really weird kind of trap thing for the bull who is so passionate about others.
Yeah, it is. That's really an interesting insight.
I've never considered that in terms of kind of that bull mentality, but I can see where it could happen.
The trap is, because I care about these things, then I will do for them
because, I mean,
rather than myself.
I'm I'm taking a step back and talking in paragraphs instead of dialogue, but
Whatever.
if that question comes up, he does care about the people here. I mean, obviously they're in need. What he'd love to do is just kind of go out, what you want to do is just go out and stomp on Fluvis and all the bugs and all the whatever and make these people safe again, and then I don't know what I would do after that. I mean, how do I keep them safe? How do I keep you guys safe? How do I do any of that stuff? But short-term smashing.
So having said that, Joe, please, for me, make a note somewhere in your character sheet that you have 2 hold to spend to help Met. That you just get to hold.
I already have 2 hold. Oh, okay. I get 2 more hold because
yes.
I've got.
Add some.
Okay. I will add some.
Because this is still sharing a vulnerability. I think the context is different. But you have a ton of hold that you can spend to help Met. So let that be a thing that starts happening because you've got it there as a pool. And I think it's
now
only...
we just need to maneuver Met into horrible danger so I can blast all that hold and do something incredible. So,
well, yeah.
Okay.
But it's also it works at any range and it works at anything. So to a certain extent, Joe can be sort of that. I'll remember it. I'll point it out to Met as well because it's there as a pool of inspiration, sort of to a certain extent of thinking of Joe or a conversation that you guys have had and figuring out, or even that if some of your motivation for doing a thing is because of what you're trying to prevent happening here, let that be a thing.
We can put Met in a horribly dangerous situation and then watch as she gets herself out of it.
Sort of, but only because of Joe. I only made it because of you.
Hi up. Oh, I can break these ropes.
Met smash.
Met smash. It could also be Joe, smashing into the rescue. That's fine too.
I'm actually gonna use a team move in here too to solidify the future potential.
Okay.
So one of my team moods is when you confess to a teammate the difference between what you thought they would be and what they really are.
Oh, really?
Pool, yeah.
I didn't see that.
Add team to the pool and ask them if you represent a future they want. If they say yes, mark potential. If they say no, mark condition. Either way, throw team into the pool.
Because you've never really come clean, I think, necessarily about maybe I'm misremembering this, but I don't know that you've ever actually come entirely clean about what you thought might happen with Joe in the because you've got that thing on your character sheet from the original relationships and stuff like that, where it was this is the person that's most likely to I can't remember what the exact word. It was basically a danger to themselves and others. kind of thing, or someone who would stray from the hero's path, something like that. So what's that look like? What do you say? What does Met say? And when she
When
says,
I first
"Oh,
met you,
thank God," I thought you were on mute. Never mind.
no. I was pondering the way of saying it. Yeah.
That's fair.
When I first met you, I think, like others, I just saw your outer shell and not your inner self, which is Joe. You may say all you like that you don't know who you are, but I know who you are. And I've never told you this, but in the, what I know of the future from, records and stuff, you are a person in our time right here that has great potential, both to be a solution or to being a missing part from a solution. And knowing you as I do, and knowing the inner Joe, I think you will always be part of the solution.
I think though that I love that. First of all, I should preface that. I was having an internal monologue in my head. That's awesome, but I want to point out that in the move there's a question that to be posed of like asking them if
Yeah.
is that future that you present the future that they want.
Right.
And I think
And that's the question there is, I see you as being this person that's part of the solution. I know that you have the potential of going either way. The future that you want. Because it's really desire. It's not phrased as the way the other one is, which is like, do you believe that? It's sort of more,
do you want that?
do you want that future? Is that the future you want? If it is, I will fight for you to have it.
Joe.
I want to be part of the solution. This all has to mean something. I have to mean something, what I'm doing. So, yeah. There was a point where I was just going to kind of walk off into the jungle and say goodbye to everyone and not be around. And Alex convinced me not to do that. And now what you're telling me, if there's a chance for what I've gone through to mean something and to be able to do something, I want to, and I like that you'll fight for that for me too.
Please take her hand.
Actually, he's gonna all out kiss her.
Ooh.
I was about to go and pull up a Little Mermaid, go on and kiss the girl.
Please feel free to go ahead and do so.
Joyce, I'm just going to take this moment to remind everybody that the drones have video features.
Everyone all the other people start clapping.
Now I will say, at one point in time,
what are they cheering for out there on the plaza? I don't understand.
I will say, for the record, at one point in time, I had Bill sort of relaying a private moment through to everybody else, and I was chided rightfully for that. But I like the implication here from Bill that while Alex would certainly never just pull a straight video feed from these two while they're having an awkward moment in the tunnels, they would absolutely record that awkward moment for posterity to possibly be pulled out at some later date when it is most effective.
This is how you get things done.
Multitasking
and archival footage. I think we all remember when Joe and Met first realized that they were meant for each other. Oh, you don't? Oh, let me refresh your memory. Play tape. All right. Yeah. Anyway.
I will share a story after the session,
okay,
which is very relevant. But I'm just going to say, if Alex is not watching this on live feed, they're missing out. And if they do watch it, they'll probably do a fist bump and be like, "Yeah."
I love the idea that while they would never be so just rebroadcasting it to everybody, you're absolutely personally keeping an eye on things, which I think is
yeah, I have some discretion. Come on.
Yes, exactly. It's perfect. All right. All right. So yeah, Met. Because we're close to the end, we will definitely find out what your response to that is, but we're going to wait till next session. But if it's all right with you, the big gorilla kiss happens, and we'll figure out whether or not she slaps him immediately afterwards or not. Because that's going to be the last panel in that comic that we get, and whether that's a panicked, wide-eyed shot of her face over Joe's shoulder or not.
Exclamation points over the head, or...
Yeah. It's pretty funny. That's great. Next time shave. Oh God. I mean, keep in mind, Met's been being played by a player who is more than familiar with smooching with somebody with lots of facial hair. So, she has the requisite skills. Anyway. In any case, all right. So real quick, just to place people, Roddy, would you please give me an unleash your powers to overcome the obstacle of getting in and out of getting out rather of the underground temple complex and getting up to the surface again, please, for me. I just want to kind of find out that you're up there, or find out that you ran afoul of something. So
okay.
If that is all right. But if you're gonna, it seems like a very Roddy thing. It certainly seems like using your Roddy ability, your sync abilities for all of this stuff. So.
Yep, and I don't think another move that does something similar is quite right for this. So,
okay.
All right. Also, they're all the same numbers.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. And a 7 will certainly get you by. So overcome. So the question here, since you're overcoming, is it unstable or temporary? Which I think temporary is pretty straightforward. In that, I think temporary for me, it looks like, and they quickly realize that what you've done, and they probably catch up to you. Not that you're in they're in pursuit, but they quickly go, oh well, he's, they come and get you.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty. You want that? Okay. It works really, really well for me. You guys get up to the surface, have a few minutes, and then they, extremely grumpy gorillas come and get you. That works out pretty well for me. So yeah, you're getting your way up there to that.
And by the way,
yes,
Tiffany is so embarrassed that grumpy gorillas had to come get her.
I mean, yeah. Okay, so that's going on back in the temple chamber. We've got Kiln, we've got Tahi, and we've got Alex. Kiln, just out of curiosity, does that thought, and whether or not it's particularly important to Kiln, does the thought, whatever killed the Temple Guardian or ended the Temple Guardian probably had something to do with whatever they were trying to accomplish with the final outer ring of stuff. Is that something that gets voiced to Tahi, to Alex, to both, to neither?
I definitely want to at least check out what the last circle is meant to do and see if, I don't know, there's something obvious like, oh, one of the parts is a guardian head or something.
Oh, okay. All right. Very cool. All right. So, yeah, you're kind of quietly on your own then heading down to investigate that last outer, like, there's more than a few, call them projects out there, but there's more than just one, I should say. But yeah, heading down there to,
like a big charred crater, kind of on the edge of. Yeah.
Was it a good movie?
Like a lot.
But was it a good movie?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There was so much crying.
You are a big softie.
I
Sorry, guys.
feel
There's one second.
so much. Representation.
Hang on. I gotta hug my daughter.
Of course you do.
So what do you get from the difference between what you thought they would be and what they are thing, or is it?
It teamed to the pool, and I get a,
That's right.
I get experience or whatever. I get.
Yeah. So that's.
I get a thing.
You get a thing. Hang on. All right. So, okay. So right up there, Kiln heading down to investigate. Alex, what are you aiming for? What is your next goal here?
I want root access to the temple. You asked.
Pseudo, make me a laser. All right.
I don't expect it to be a simple roll. I'm just telling you.
No. Gotcha. I think the first thing I'm mostly just saying I'm mostly wanting to physically place all the pieces on the board, and for that you're sort of naturally gravitating to it. It just follows based on the orientation of everything that you want to be either next to that gigantic storage of knowledge, the big hard drive, or next to the regeneration pod. The big hard drive or the regeneration pod where everything is sort of pointed at in the first place. But in any case, you want to be centrally located where all the gizmos have been put. And so you're heading into the center. Kiln's heading out to the outer edge. Tahi, TBD, Sync, and I'll just for a moment of this, it isn't like great parkour. It isn't like acrobatics or anything like that. What gets you to the surface is simply timing, perfect timing, and observing. Like, this is where there are guards, and what are their how are they moving? When is there going to be a perfect gap between this place and this place where there would otherwise not be? And also just the people moving around, and how do we get past them? How do we pick a path in such a way that nobody really sees us or isn't looking the right way? So it's very, very subtle, and
it's the equivalent of the master thief doing the slow acrobatic tumble through the moving laser beams in the
the
vault.
A little bit of pauses and stuff, and it's about 2/3 of the way through the main chamber when you getting relatively close to getting out of there, and Gothwitch kind of. Tiffany's sort of watching this and realizing, because when you're doing this timing stuff, you don't really have time to like sort of explain this what's going on. Nor do I think necessarily that Rodney would be particularly likely to sit and explain. That she kind of says, like, there's a moment of pause there where you're just waiting for the right moment, and she says, "How long do you think you had powers before you realized you had powers?
I got powers.
Don't. Come on. Like, do you think you always did? And you just didn't realize it?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's really hard to know when the difference between I have really good timing and I can snatch knives out of the air is.
Well, I think it'd be when you catch the first knife, but it's, I mean, it's almost like I'm not watching anything. Except if I look at everything you're doing, it's pretty big. I mean, if you, have you ever had, has there ever been too much for you to keep track of all at once?
There was the explosion in South America. That was difficult for a second or two.
Okay. Huh. It's cool. What you do is pretty cool. I will deny that I ever said that,
I will deny you ever said it too.
but and right about then, it's time to move again. So you move. Okay, so Alex to the middle, Kiln to the outer edge, Roddy and Gothwitch going up, and Joe and Met on America's Craziest Home Videos. Met.
As long as it's not the Animal Planet edition.
Just no sloppy tongues. Okay?
These pets are crazy. Matt, closer to the team, further away from the team, more into your own image of yourself.
The team.
You think? Roddy, obviously.
Yeah.
All right.
obviously.
I'll let you guys sort all that out. Joe.
Closer to the image of my own self. No, closer to the team.
I mean, I could actually see it. All joking aside, I could actually see an argument for that because, and not least because of Med's assistance.
Yes.
But
But
yeah, that's.
But I'd rather be closer. I'd rather be closer.
This would be. I just want to point out that this would be super creepy if you two weren't married, and I'm really glad, or at least that tiny little piece of dialogue would be uncomfortable. Wouldn't be creepy necessarily. Anyway, but nevertheless, pretty cool. Kiln. I have many questions, and they are all the ones that I just asked, but I'm not at all sure what the answer might be. So, what do you think?
Many questions, huh?
Well, closer to the team, further away from the team, or do you image yourself? Three
is
questions.
many now.
I have 3 questions. More than 2.
I'll say closer to the team, to Alex,
Okay.
because they kind of opened up some to me, even if I didn't quite get all the severity of it. I'm so sorry going to the bathroom is so difficult for you. Good, I was gonna remind you that I had adaptability.
Yay! Raising adaptability or
Oh my
lowering
god,
it?
it's raised?
Did they raise
Who
it?
knew? Yeah,
I
who
like
knew it was possible to raise it?
Alex.
I am divided. I would either go closer to Kiln or closer to Roddy. I'm going to let Roddy have his fun and say closer to Kiln.
All right. Closer to Kiln. Cool. Roddy.
I don't know. Like, I could go for any of them, and I'm not sure which. So,
Have you given influence to Gothwitch?
maybe.
Not necessarily saying that that's a viable option. I was just randomly had that thought. The question.
Are
popping
you
there.
telling me to do that one?
No, I didn't. I wasn't making a suggestion as much as just saying, did that already happen, or is that a thing, or anything like that?
Actually, no, it did happen because I just gave it to him, not through like end of game session stuff.
Oh,
It was just like,
Yeah,
yeah, they are a person who would probably have influence over Roddy. So
makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Doesn't have to be. I was just saying, and if so, I will have her shift your labels. But if you give it again, I'm fine
Nah,
with that.
I think I'll give it to Alex, just because Alex let Roddy have fun. So
Yeah, there's got to be a little bit of gratitude for coming up with a thing that lets you go and that lets you kind of go and have shenanigans and send you off with Goth Witch, into the
you're
bargain.
telling me to go have shenanigans? Yes, you're
Yes.
my friend. This is why I saved you from yourself.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. All right. That session delivered a lot of stuff I was not expecting it to deliver. Good stuff, guys. Man, I like all of it. I love the imagery that we came up with. So,
Oh, by the way, did you add one to the team for the team that I did?
I know, but I will do so. So,
Okay.
thank you. Deal that to me and yoink. There we go. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Man, good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So, I think that's it. I'm gonna hit stop here. Good stuff, guys.